Hi, I'm Jessa. In this talk, I present a brief overview of our paper, Unpacking the Complexities of Community-Led Violence Prevention Work. Thank you for watching. While there is growing evidence that ICTs play a role in instigating violence, less research has explored the potential to design ICTs to reduce violence, especially in communities where historic oppression drives higher rates of crime, over-policing, and police brutality. Following Patricia Hill Collins's definition, oppression describes any unjust situation where systematically and over a long period of time, one group denies another group access to the resources of the society. As such, we turn our attention to how ICTs can be used to support community-led efforts to reduce violence. We pose the following research questions. What is the role of information and communication technologies in street outreach work? And how do street outreach workers envision new ICTs supporting their work? Street outreach organizations work to lower rates of shootings, homicides, and other forms of violence without incarcerating people by hiring and training residents who were previously involved in street gangs to mediate conflicts in their communities that could otherwise lead to violence. They learn about the conflicts in a number of ways, such as encountering a fight on the street, seeing a threat posted to social media, or getting contacted by a community member, and then use mediation strategies to peacefully de-escalate the conflict. Street outreach is very complex, demanding, and dangerous work. Street outreach workers are essentially on call 24 hours a day because they live in the communities where they work. To briefly summarize their work, they detect and mediate potentially violent conflicts. They identify and provide resources to people at high risk of being involved in violence, and they mobilize their community to heal from and resist structural oppression. This approach to violence prevention relies heavily on the assets, such as relationships, credibility, or street knowledge, of both street outreach workers and their communities. In this way, it is an assets-based model to violence prevention. The motivation for this project was to co-design a technology to support street outreach workers' practices in order to prevent violence and build community. Street outreach workers have a deep understanding of the daily realities that residents face, including over-policing, mass incarceration, and concentrated poverty, which are conditions created by policies that have driven segregation and disinvestment in their communities. These conditions catalyze cycles of violence and trauma in Black communities, which has been normalized by the historic association of Blackness with violence and criminality. Black criminality is the dehumanizing idea that violence and crime are an inherent trait of Black communities and therefore Black people. Street outreach workers counter the narrative of Black criminality by building narratives about their communities that center their strengths and by leveraging their unique expertise to resist the impacts of oppression. This was a community-based collaborative research study, and two of our co-authors were formerly street outreach workers. For more details on our positionality, please reference the paper. The project was initiated by the community PI, Jalen Arthur, who also invited two partnering organizations to participate in order to maximize the study's potential impact. In this paper, we refer collectively to the three organizations as Street Peace. We worked with these organizations for 3 years. In this paper, we focus on the beginning of the project, which was to understand street outreach workers' perspectives and usage of technology. To learn about a Street Peace mobile app that we developed out of this work, please see our CSCW 2021 paper. This paper makes two main contributions to HCI. First, our findings provide insight into the role of technology in community-based violence prevention, providing direct accounts from street outreach workers about how they use ICTs to mediate conflicts and engage residents in outreach, as well as the ways they keep their communications safe, extending prior research that does not include the technological perspective. Furthermore, we situate this paper in prior literature that focuses on collaboratively designing technologies with communities that have faced structural oppression. By focusing on community-based violence prevention approaches, we take a design justice approach and seek to grow the body of work in HCI that explores community-led alternatives to policing. To address our research questions, we interviewed 25 outreach workers across 7 Street Peace sites using semi-structured interviews. Our collaborators selected the sites and got permission from street outreach workers for us to interview them prior to us visiting them. A site is the office for a team of street outreach workers. Each of our 7 sites were located in a different Chicago, Illinois neighborhood. We found that street outreach workers use information communication technologies to mediate conflicts, collaborate, and communicate with the community. Furthermore, street outreach workers expressed a desire to create technologies that inform their mediation strategy selection, enhance their training, and improve communication across street outreach sites and organizations. Aligned with prior research, participants indicated that ICTs, particularly social media, can catalyze violent situations. In addition, participants in our study said that ICTs can also help them mediate conflicts that emerge on social media before they become violent. Street outreach workers emphasize the importance of collaboration and teamwork in conflict mediation. Opportunities to communicate are built into the practices and procedures of violence prevention work, such as regular team meetings where street outreach workers share information and discuss current conflicts and potential strategies to mediate them. Additionally, outreach workers send text messages and calls to team members as conflicts unfold and to coordinate their response. Street outreach workers stress the importance of being able to access their social networks through in-person and online communication, such as to learn about conflicts from community members. They described how social media can sometimes help them identify social connections that they can leverage in mediations, particularly when they do not know some or all of the people involved in the conflict. They also described using phone calls and texting to communicate with community members about conflicts. We had 3 main takeaways from this project. First, our findings indicate that there is an opportunity to support existing violence prevention practices with ICTs, such as by enabling cross-organizational communication so that street outreach workers from different organizations can more easily connect. Second, as designers, we have an opportunity to co-design technologies that support street outreach workers' practices of extending care to each other and their communities, which counters the dehumanizing narrative of Black criminality. Lastly, we present a set of questions and considerations to reflect on the complexities of doing work in contexts shaped by structural oppression, and to promote an assets-based approach in which people who have been traditionally excluded from the design process are positioned as agents of knowledge. Thank you for listening. For more information, references, and details about our collaboration process, please read this paper and our CSCW 2021 paper.